Good afternoon, everybody. Let's make a start then. Agenda item 1 is the appointment of chairperson. Can you all be quiet? Thank you. I'm Councillor Steve Hunt, leader of Neath Talbot Council, and I'll be chairing today's meeting of Cabinet. Agenda item 2 is the chair's announcements. So can I just welcome members of the public or press viewing this meeting? Can you please ensure your microphones are switched off? You are here to observe the meeting only. Members and officers, please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting and that your microphones are switched to mute unless you are speaking. In addition, when asked to raise your hand, if members who are virtually attending this meeting could raise your electronic hands, and for members physically present, just raise your hands here in the chamber. Officers, can I please ask you to ensure to verbally add any additional comments for scrutiny from scrutiny committees if this has not already been included in your reports this afternoon. So I move on to agenda item 3. Before I move on to agenda item 3, can I just say that agenda item 14 this afternoon has been deferred to a further meeting in the very near future. Thank you. So I move on to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Can I ask members if there are any declarations of interest? Please would members say what the items are and what the interest is, and I'll ask Tammy then to forward you an electronic version of the form for you to complete and email back to her.
I see no hands, Chair.
Thank you, Tammy. I move on then to agenda item 4, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the meeting of Cabinet on the 5th of February are on pages 5 to 18 of your agenda pack. They are before you today for approval of accuracy. Can I ask members if they have any comments on the accuracy of these minutes, please? I don't see any. I'm happy to propose they're a true record. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Alan. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're content with the accuracy of those minutes.
I see no indications to the contrary, Leader, so those minutes have been approved.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Agenda item 5 is the Forward Work Programme for 24-25. This Forward Work Programme is on pages 19 to 22 and is here for noting. I move on to agenda item 6, which is public question time. I have received no notification from the public to speak at today's meeting. So I'll move on to agenda item 7, which is the 2025-2026 revenue budget proposals. The report is on pages 23 to 92 and is here for a decision. I now introduce Hugh Jones to see if he'd like to introduce this report this afternoon. Thank you, Hugh.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Leader. So this report before you today sets out the proposed Council's revenue budget for 2025-26, including proposed council tax levels. The report details the fact that the Welsh Government provisional settlement that we received was 4.4%. However, this was not sufficient to meet our inflationary and service pressures. You'll see from the table on page 30 of the pack that after taking account of the Welsh Government funding, the Council is still facing a budget gap of £15 million for next year. Officers had originally worked up savings and income generation proposals of £8.6 million. However, in these final proposals, that's been reduced to £8.1 million because the saving relating to home to school transport has been deferred for a year due to doubts around delivery. And we're proposing to close this gap by using the Education Equalisation Reserve. As a result of all the above, with no further suggestions coming forward around savings, the report details a proposed council tax rise for 25-26 of 7%. Members will note that on page 24 of the report, it makes reference to the fact that the figures are based on the provisional local government settlement. We've now had the final settlement, which actually resulted in a slight reduction in funding of £40,000. However, since the report was published, we've also had the final notification from the Chief from the Fire Authority of the levy, which is £60,000 less than budgeted, so that offsets the £40,000 reduction in our leader. So no changes to the report as a result of these settlements, so that's it. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much, Hugh. I'll go to members for any questions. Councillor Noyle, please.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I'll first acknowledge the hard work done by Hugh and his team in terms of the revenue budget and the information you see in front of us. It's been a lengthy, I think, probably 8 months, which will start again fairly soon for next year, pulling all this together. I'll also say that I'm not entirely happy just in terms of the funding and the amount of funding we've received from Welsh Government. Clearly, as Hugh has alluded to in his opening comments, the funding isn't sufficient enough to cover the costs that we need them to do. Page 24, good to see some of the proposals that were put forward as savings and income generation ideas taken out following some consultation, and also some of the comments made throughout in terms of additional funding that's gone into our education and schools. Not enough again, but all we can do is lobby the Welsh Government to try and get some additional funding to pay for the things that we needed to pay for. It's a difficult time, it's a difficult budget, but I firmly believe that this is a budget that puts us into a picture of where we are currently. I'm not sure whether we could have done anything differently with it. The scrutiny process has been quite robust. We had 2 scrutiny meetings for each of the directorates to go through each of the line items. And I would say that they've been well scrutinised by members and have taken us to the stage we are today. But that's all I wanted to say on the subject for today, Leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Any further comments from members? Councillor Llewellyn?
Yeah, just very briefly to reiterate the thanks to all the officers and staff that have been involved in preparing the budget, because apart from the financial team, we know that all the teams across the council are part of contributing their ideas and achieving the strict financial targets that have had to be set in the current circumstances, and the cooperative work with members, both in cabinet and in scrutiny. This is a balanced budget, not only in numerical terms, but also in the balance being achieved between the financial pressures that we face and a determination to protect services and jobs within the authority, and therefore it's key, as Councillor Simon Oyle pointed out, that we have been able to remove some of the issues which caused great concerns in our initial early consultation, and been able to invest further in some key areas such as education. Therefore, I hope that between today and the council meeting next week, all members will have the opportunity to closely study the budget and see what the aims of the budget are and what we are all trying to achieve. And obviously the budget will be in the public domain as well, in order to inform our residents of the approach that we're taking, what we're trying to do to protect their public services across all the communities.
Thank you, Councillor Llewellyn. Any further comments from members? I don't see any. Can I just also add that I certainly concur with Councillor Noyle and Councillor Llewellyn's views on this. This council prides itself on protecting services and jobs, and it's done it very well since I've been here anyway, and I've been here 16 years. So we continue in that way. Jobs and services are really important. So for the reasons Councillor Llewellyn and Councillor Noyle has indicated, I'm also happy to support this budget. So with no further questions, I now refer members to the recommendation on page 34 of your agenda pack. I'm happy to propose this agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Please to second.
Thank you, Alan. Members, if you do not, any abstentions? I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you are in favour of the recommendations.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair, so I can confirm the revenue budget has been approved and the setting of council tax levels for 25-26 have been commended to council for approval.
Thank you, Tammy. I move on to agenda item 8, which is the Capital Strategy and Capital Programme 2025-2026 to 2027-2028. The report is on pages 93 to 110 and is here for a decision. So I'll go back to Hugh Jones now to introduce this report. Thank you.
Thanks again, Leader. So the report, as you say, sets out the proposed capital programme for next year. And usually, as you'll see from the report, it only has 1 year allocations across service areas. This is because, as a senior leadership team, we've recognised the fact that the current allocation methodology has been in place since 1996 and may not reflect need currently. So we're going to have a review as to how we allocate the capital programme and report back to Cabinet in due course on that. You will note that the programme identifies £5 million worth of funding to support a county borough-wide neighbourhood improvement programme. And this is going to be funded from the existing revenue budget for capital financing, which is incurred due to slippages over a number of years. Now, at the moment, this is just an allocation of funding. There's no particular detail around it. The report does contain some information and some early thoughts as to how we can frame that. So if Cabinet and Council are minded to support the £5 million allocation, we'll work together, officers and members, to come back to Cabinet with a prioritised list of projects further down the line, Leader. So just wanted to make that point, and thank you. Happy to take any questions. Diolch.
Thank you for that report, Hugh. And I'll go to members for any questions. Councillor Noyle, please.
Thank you again, Leader. Yeah, I'm very pleased to see this report come through to us. Capital programme and capital strategy form a very big part in what we do as the council, and also the potential change into our strategy of how we go forward with that. In terms of the on page 97, the neighbourhood improvement programme, I'm grateful to Hugh and officers for taking on board some Cabinet recommendations and thoughts about how we can do something differently within our communities, making better use of public realm and services across all of the communities within Neath Talbot, and taking on board views from members as well, because I think that's really important. Officers have a role to play, but also members, local members, have that as well. That 3-year plan for that £5 million spend takes us into 2028. Obviously planning ahead rather than just a short, sharp improvement. This can be strategized. We can look at various ways in which we can enhance the communities and add to them with some match funding in certain areas. So I'm very happy to see this report come through, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyle. Any further questions from members? I don't see any. I think what you've said there, Simon, is spot on, and must remember this has been fed into by all members of this authority, identifying the needs and a way forward in this way. So look forward to scrutinising how it's implemented, I suppose, going forward. So thank you for that. If there are no further questions from members, I now refer members to the recommendation on page 101 of your agenda pack. Again, I'm happy to propose this agenda item. Can I have a seconder, please?
Well, here you look at it, please.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions? I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume that you're in favour of the recommendations.
No indications to the contrary, Chair, so I can confirm the recommendations are being commended to Council for approval.
Thank you once more, Tammy. If I move on to agenda item 9, which is the Treasury Management Strategy, the Annual Investment Strategy and the Minimum Revenue Policy. This report is on pages 111 to 132 and is here for a decision. I'll hand back to Hugh Jones once more to introduce this report, please.
Thanks again, Leader. Last time for me today. So this report sets out the Council's Treasury Management and Investment arrangements for 2025-26. It sets out the various prudential indicators required by the 2003 Local Government Act and Treasury Management Code of Practice. It also includes, as you say, the minimum revenue provision policy, which is a technical document around statutory write-down of debt. The report in itself is all very technical due to the nature involved, so I won't go into any detail, but happy to take any questions from Cabinet members. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you once more, Hugh. And I'll open it up to any questions from Cabinet members. Don't see any. I now refer members to recommendation on page 126 of your agenda pack. I am happy to propose this agenda item. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to see how you look at it, please.
Thank you, Alan. Any abstentions? Don't see any. Members, again, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume you're in favour of the recommendations.
There are no indications to the contrary, Chair, so those recommendations have been commended to Council for approval.
Thank you again, Tammy. If I move on to agenda item 10, which is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. This report is on pages 133 to 152 and is here for a decision. I see in the chamber we have Simon Brennan and Lisa Willis, so I'll go over to both of them to introduce the report. So I don't know if Simon wants to go first or straight to Lisa. Lisa, I believe. Over to you then, Lisa. Thank you.
The purpose of this report is to seek members' approval on the recommendation to approve the Neath Talbot UK Shared Prosperity Fund Transition Year 25-26 Transition Year Programme and Delivery Model. I'll just cover some main points of the report. The UK Shared Prosperity Fund 25-26 Transition Year will support activities from April 2025 until March 2026, including continuation of some existing UK SPF activity. It's a mix of revenue and capital, and a greater percentage allocated to capital than previous programmes. Neath Talbot's allocation for the transition year is just over 14 million, so 14.3 million. So Neath Talbot Council, along with Merthyr Tydfil, Blaenau Gwent and Rhondda and Taff, received a 25% reduction on our year 3 allocation. The 3 UK SPF priorities are communities in place, supporting local business and people and skills. And each of those priorities have some themes and sub-themes which are indicated in the report. In terms of delivery model, to ensure a strategic approach and also to ensure we maximise the funding, Neath Talbot Council proposed delivery model is to develop 5 council-led anchor projects to deliver key council priorities. So community, place, business, employability and skills. So under the community anchor, there'll be a community fund to ensure third-party organisations, so community, voluntary and businesses and public sector groups can access the funding. A place anchor project looking at some capital projects, including industrial units, and also there'll be a place fund looking at commercial property grants across the county borough. A business anchor project, which includes business support and also a business fund for startups up to business growth. Employability linked to from 11-year-olds up to working age adults with paid work opportunities, and a skills anchor project, also linking in with the college to focus on employability skills for our residents. The Neath Talbot Council will manage and administer all third-party grant schemes, that's the business, community and place ones. In terms of governance, the Cabinet will have decision-making with a number of delegated authorities. So in terms of, and the Neath Talbot Local Economic Partnership will continue to ensure local stakeholder engagement and advisory capacity. So in terms of next steps, we were looking to approve anchor projects via a working group of the programme board and then submitted to the delegated authority as indicated in the report. And we are planning on commencing delivery from the 1st of April 2025. So that's the overview of the report. Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Lisa, for that report. I'll now go to see if there's any questions from members. Any member that Councillor Noyle, please.
Thank you, Steve. I thought others were going to speak before me, but yes. Obviously acknowledge the work that Lisa and her team have done with the SPF. Although, as I mentioned last week at the Cabinet members briefing, there are some concerns that I just wouldn't be right if I didn't raise them, I guess. Just in relation to the timings, I understand the issues with the timings and being able to use this money and the grant money appropriately and get it out the door by the timings we need to, as set by UK government. On page 136, and this is where my concern comes into it, that it's not a continuation year, although we are seeking to continue with some of the activities that were carried out in the last 3 years. Since the meeting last week, we're trying to arrange a meeting because I think it doesn't sit right with me that we're able to continue with some and support activities of some of the organisations that have had funding from 22 to 25, whilst not having some of the information relating to the outcomes from those. So we're trying to arrange a meeting to understand what those are. I think it might have been better if we had that first, but I understand the reasons behind it and timings. One of the other issues I had was in relation to lack of energy and green credentials coming through as the priorities, which we talked about last week. Lisa was able to confirm that energy and green projects fall under all three of the category, all three of the themes contained within the report. So I'm glad that that's included, because we're at a time where we're seeing lots of press about net zero and things like that. And I think it's important that organisations and companies who want to try and do something along those lines to achieve their net zero targets are able to do that, whether it be through employability, business, or communities and our places as well. So that's all I want to say at this point. No questions, Chair, but just some statements and observations from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyle. I don't think there's a response to that. It's more of a statement. Any other member got any comments? Councillor Llewellyn?
Yeah, Dirk Cadeirydd. I think we have to recognise that this is a transition year, and we have to very carefully prioritise the work and the projects because of the large reduction in the amount of funding available from UK government during this year. And I think some of the key issues looking forward, apart from the issues just raised by Councillor Simon Noyle now, is the assurance needed that funding levels will come through to meet the commitment to fully replace European funding in Wales. And I think that's what we have to press on both UK government and Welsh government. And whatever the mechanism that's adopted for shared prosperity fund or successor funds in future, that it ensures the level of flexibility and local input and local control of those funds, so that we can ensure that they're directed as effectively as possible for the benefit of all our communities. So I think that's part of the work that we have to try and achieve during the year, apart from delivering our specific programmes, is to ensure that the Shared Prosperity Fund is fit for purpose for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Any further comments from members? Just for me then, taking on board Councillor Llewellyn and Councillor Noyle's comments this afternoon. I believe this is a start. I think it opens it up to community groups and organisations to access funding more easily and to deliver on the needs that we have. And I think further discussions to make sure that the public funds are spent in an appropriate way, because that's the key for this, isn't it? They are public funds, and we need to do the best. Not taken away from the work, Lisa, you, Simon, and the teams, take that back. It's been a arduous task, I would say, to get 28 million out of the doors, and I think you've done an excellent job under challenging circumstances. So going forward with the reduction, maybe that could help you a little bit, and certainly we're here to support you in the work that you do. So thank you for that. So I don't see any further questions or comments. I now refer members to the recommendations on pages 140 to 141 of your agenda pack. I'm happy to propose this agenda item. Could I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Alan. Are there any abstentions from members? I don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I will assume you're in favour of the recommendation.
No indications to the contrary, Leader. So those recommendations have been approved.
Thank you, Tammy. Agenda item 11 is urgent items. I have received no urgent items this afternoon. So agenda item 12 is the access to meetings. So the access to meetings report is on pages 153 to 158 of your report packs. So I now resolve to exclude the public for the following items in pursuit of regulations 4(3) and 5 of your statutory instrument 2001 number 2290 and the relevant paragraphs of part 4 of schedule 12A to the Local Development Act 1972. I now propose that we move into private session. Could I have a seconder, please?
Obviously, I'll please to second.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any abstentions? Don't see any. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary by raising your hand, I'll assume that you are now in favour of moving into private. And we'll ask Tammy to confirm this, that the recordings have stopped and members of the public or press have left the meeting.
Yeah, just confirming we're stopping the recording now.